Good morning, everybody. I'm Bill, and we're back in the studio today working on the 1905 Ithaca. It's been a couple months since we've done any work on this shotgun, but my reasons I think are pretty sound. I had so many jobs in the shop that were waiting to get done that I decided to put this on hold and to focus or concentrate on getting all those other jobs out of the shop. I didn't film them or didn't film all of them because frankly when I film any of this work, the time it takes to do the job doubles, and between setting up the cameras and the production time and all of that. So I decided I was just going to get that work that was in queue done and out of here. For the rest of the summer, my hope is to focus my energies just on this shotgun restoration, and if I can pull it off, I'd really like to have this thing done by fall, early winter at the latest. We still have a lot of work to do, and this is a pretty complicated restoration considering all the things that are wrong with it and all the work that I've had to do on it. So anyway, this episode, the plan is to replace those side panels, and we've talked about this in a couple other videos. And we're going to start out by putting it on the mill and milling those panels flat, and I'll talk you through the process as I do that. Now I have this this later Ithaca. It is the same but different. This is a box lock. It does not have the hammers that this older one does. I managed to pick this one up, and it is a really stunning example of that Ithaca, or these Ithacas for that period of time. I believe this one is somewhere around 1925 if I remember. This has fluid steel barrels, where the one I'm working on is Damascus. But its shape, its form, it's all pretty much the same. The forearm is pretty close. The buttstock is pretty close. But what is really unique about this thing is there's two things. First off, I've got these panels, and I can now trace these panels on this newer one. But these shapes, these dimensions, are virtually identical, and I'm going to be able to pull patterns off from this to get it over to here and be pretty confident that my panels, my pointy little panels, are exactly where they need to be. The other thing about this has most of its original color case finishes on the receiver intact. It is stunning, it is beautiful. It is not as rich as it would have been when it came out of the factory, but it's there. I can look at it, I can use it as a reference, and when I get ready to do the color case on that receiver that goes to this shotgun, I'll have a pattern to compare to. Between using this shotgun as my model and my reference, we ought to be able to come pretty close to making this a really nice little restoration. All right, let's go and start working on those side panels. So in this video, I think I'm going to focus on just milling these sides down on this stock. So my goal, if you remember right, is I want to get these brass screws in here, and I'm going to come in from both sides, I think, and put a screw in from this end, and then another screw in from this side. And what I want to do is make sure that I'm taking up any potential ability for these stocks to split again, because you know we epoxied them in. The epoxy's holding up really nice, but I want to just give it a little bit extra strength by adding these screws. So I want to mill the flat off first, and Eventually I'm going to add those appliques, or today actually on this video I want to add those appliques, the additional wood, so that in the next video I can shape these panels back the way they're supposed to look on this gun stock. So today's goal, or this video's goal, is to get this milled down so that I get a nice flat surface that I can glue the appliques to. But below those appliques, I want to drill and counterbore for these brass screws and then get those in so that those are hidden below the applique. Now, I really wish that I didn't have to add back these panels. I wish the panels were here, they were good. But somewhere in this stock's history, it got sanded down, and the unfortunate truth is that when they sanded it down, they eliminated a lot of the checkering. So I'm going to have to again build those panels back up, reshape them, and then go back in and try to replicate the checkering as best as I can to get this thing so that it looks like it did when it came out of the factory. Now, let's go ahead and set up the mill, and let's see if we can get these panels milled down. So I wish I had one of those really extremely well thought out plans that I can execute flawlessly, and I am not entirely convinced I do. A couple of reasons. I've never done this before. I've got, just using some experience, I got an idea what I think I need to do or how I have to approach it. So my thought on this, and this is how I'm going to approach it. I have 3 wooden blocks tapered from larger to smaller, the smallest being in the front. Then I have 2 clamps that are holding this in place while I mill. Now, I don't plan to take a lot of material off at a time, so I don't imagine there's going to be a lot of stresses put on the wood. Anyway, I've got 2 wedges in here that are keeping this from rocking. And then I've got a V block back here, which sort of gets into the deepest part of the curve of the stock. One of the problems is I cannot remove a lot of material because a lot of material's already been removed. What I'm hoping to do is to simply get it flattened out so that I can apply that applique and glue it and get a good strong bond, but also leave enough material for me to get those wood screws, those brass wood screws in. So what I've done is I've tried to level out this part of the panel, the original, or what's left of that original panel. So my mill is level, it's level to earth, so I've simply got this bubble level on here, and there's a little bit of curve, a little bit of rock to it, so some of this is just guessing by gosh. But I've got this level on here so that this panel is relatively level. Now, getting it this way, I've got the bubble level, but I also took a dial indicator and came up underneath the inletting, the part of the inletting that is perpendicular to the stock, to the gun itself, and put my dial indicator, and I came across, and I am within 5/1000ths of level this way, and I'm okay with that. I think that 5/1000ths, any of that kind of taper isn't going to matter that much, because if I execute this well and then get that applique glued on and then reshape that panel, my hope is that the glue line isn't going to show, or show minimally. All right, let's go ahead and let's try this. Let's try to get this thing milled out. Now, as I mill this, what remains of that panel is still there, and then it drops off into a curve here. So that my goal, my mission, I think, is to mill this as flat as I can until I'm just short of touching this curve in the wrist where your hands normally grip. So I don't want to go down into that because I want to leave that intact, just want to remove this material here. So I'm going to let that curve in the wrist become my stopping point or my guide for how much material I want to remove. Let me go turn on the phase converter. Now, because we're cutting wood, we want to have our RPMs up fairly fast. Now, I don't have it as fast as I can get it. I normally do that by adjusting the belts. So I want that spindle turning as quickly as is reasonable. That does a couple things. First off, for wood, the faster the RPMs, the better the cut for the fibers itself. The other thing is, by going a little bit faster, I'm going to induce less vibration down into the stock. I'm going to make a pattern of that other shotgun, cut it out on paper and overlay it, make sure I've got that just where I need it. So this panel is actually pretty long. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to duplicate it over there because so much material was moved in this area of the stock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line the edge of the paper up with this leading edge of the stock. And then I'm going to sort of fold that down around and crease it. And then I'm hoping using this edge of the pencil come up with something that represents, that comes way out here. Way out here. All the way back to here. All right, so we'll use that pattern. I'm going to cut it out and then see where it leaves me on that other stock. So let's do that really quickly. Again, this is not so much at this point to duplicate the pattern, it's to make sure that I've got enough material removed rather, so that when I add or apply the applique or the piece of wood that I sister over the top, and that oh, that's pretty good. That's really good. All right, so now let's roll this over and see if I get the same fit on the other side, and I do. That's pretty well done. All right, let's go back onto the mill and see how this pattern I just drew works. All right, I am clearly going to have to fake this because the amount of, they rounded this, whoever did this work earlier, rounded so much of this material off up in the top that I literally would have to take this down all the way into here to get this pattern so that it's the same. I'm not going to be able to do that. It's just, there's just not enough material. You can only add so much material back in so many ways. So then rather than trying to reshape all of that, what I'm going to do is make a smaller pattern that closely replicates the pattern that's there. but is smaller, and I'm able to fit it into the amount of dimensions that I've got. Now, for instance, the flat that I just made is 1.5 inches, and the flat on this is 1.75 inches. So there's no way I can get that without that extra quarter without going down into the inletting, and I really don't want to do that. So I've got enough length that I can play with, so I can shape and style this so that it closely replicates it. And to anybody but an expert at this, it's probably you're never gonna know it. But we're gonna be able to pull this off. But we're going to pull it off at a smaller dimension. It'll still look good, and we'll be able to get that checkering back in. All right. So while I've got this set up, I'm going to pull the cutter, and I'm going to add the drill chuck, and then I'm going to go in and drill the hole for the screw, and then counterbore it, and then I'll get that screw installed. Again, the idea being to try to control any potential for this thing coming apart later on. And then I'll get that screw ready to go, and then we'll flip it over and we'll do the same thing all over again. We're going to drill all the way down through the inletting from side to side. The drill is a 176 drill. The thread body, or the threads, are 105, 106. And we're going to drill this down through. I'm then going to switch the drills, and I'm going to counterbore it. This is not the correct angle for this, but I don't care. I'm going to throw some epoxy into this, tighten this down, and then let it set. So the fact that the angle on the drill doesn't match the angle on the bottom of the brass screw, I don't really care, because I'm just trying to get that extra strength and that extra compression. All right, so let's go ahead and drill some holes. Now I've positioned this drill up in the thicker part of what is the amount of wood on the inside of this. So I'm pretty much centered in that block of wood between the two inletting. Let's change that drill out, and we'll put in the larger drill. The drill is actually the same, just slightly bigger than the head on the screw, because I want that drill to fit all the way, or rather I want that screw to fit all the way to the bottom of the counterbore. Now the reason we're doing this all at the same time is because by changing out the collet, changing out the drills while they're in position, I don't have to go back and recenter. The two drills are now on center, so when I go to drill the counterbore, it will be centered to the through hole that I put in. Okay, that should work really good. Yeah. I'm going to add a little bit of epoxy into the hole. So I mixed up just a small amount, and I'm going to use some spatulas and dental picks with the idea that I'm going to get it down inside that hole. Now, my thoughts are two on this. First off, I just want to add in that additional strength, but I don't want any possibility of those screws backing out. It's not likely they will, but I want to make sure that it isn't going to happen. So I'm just going to add some epoxy in to secure that as best as I can. So I'm not using a lot. I'm also going to use the chuck on the Bridgeport to help drive that screw in pretty straight. This is a pretty tiny Phillips head, and I'm afraid if I'm doing it by hand, then I'm going to end up stripping it, and brass is not the toughest material when it comes to screws. So my plan, all things being playing nice, is to use the force of the quill on the head to help drive that in as straight as I can. That way I can keep force on the cutouts where the screwdriver goes and keep driving it in slow. And if you watch, you can see the handle coming down. Of course, the epoxy helps lubricate that screw a little bit. Brass screws are terrible. They're terrible for breaking, they're terrible for stripping, but it's an inert material that's hopefully, or not hopefully, that will not rust inside the stock forever and ever. Okay, it is bottomed out, and if I keep going, I promise you that brass head will snap off. So just a little bit of feel here, make sure that I'm happy with it, and I am. And of course, like I've done in so many videos, using denatured alcohol to wipe away any excess. Alright, we're going to roll this stock over again. We're going to do the same thing all over again on the other side. I'm not going to bring you through all that. It's the same thing, different. The same technique, the same thinking, the same process to get that done. Now, today I was thinking that I was going to be able to glue these panels on, and I'm not going to be able to do that. What's ending up happening as I've been milling this away, the oils that are embedded in the wood are starting to migrate out through the fibers. We did a few videos back where we talked extensively about how to get oils out of the wood or the wood fibers before you begin to glue them up and begin to work on them. And I'll put a link at the top up here for that, and I'll also put a link in the description that you can go look at. I'm not going to be able to glue this on. When I get this other panel done, get the other screw in, I'm going to have to spend several days doing the same thing that we did in that other video, trying to get all the oils out of the wood fibers, because if I don't, the epoxy's not going to stick. We're going to be in a position where we're going through all this work, and then that panel that I'm going to add potentially can separate sometime in the future. We don't want that to happen. So if you're not a subscriber already, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Give it a thumbs up. If you like the video, if you like the content, all that helps the algorithms. I've also got a Patreon page where you can go and support the channel over there at the $3 and the $5 level. On Patreon, there's additional content, additional videos where I go into more in-depth discussions on things like on bluing, on polishing, on finishing. I've got a series of videos that I'm uploading right now talking about how I finish and my finishing techniques. And if that's something that you think you might be interested in, please consider going over to my Patreon page and supporting the channel over there. In addition to that, YouTube is given me something called Super Thanks. So you can also contribute dollars or money to a particular video. So you don't have to join Patreon. You don't have to join a club or join any kind of a group. With Super Thanks, if you found the content of any one video useful and you want to support the channel at the one video level, there's the option to do that. I would appreciate that support as well. It takes time and costs money to produce these videos, from the lights to the cameras to the editing software to all that goes into making this content for you guys. So if you found even one video that offered you something that you thought was worthwhile, please consider contributing to the Super Thanks or the thanks icon that's underneath this video. In any way, I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate everything that you do. I appreciate the great comments. I try to respond to as many of them as I can, trying to give you additional information where I think it's valuable to you. So thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting the channel. I'll see you in the next video.